The maid accidentally knocked over the cake, but the master finds out and pushes the maid to the ground. When the boyfriend saw this, he didn't get angry. He even begged for mercy for the maid. What he didn't realize was that the maid was his high school crush. Seeing the two of them flirting with each other in front of him, Julie was furious. In the face of the maid's bitter plea, Julie did not amuse. Instead, she became even more furious at her boyfriend's defensiveness, because the maid not only ruined her wedding cake, but also messed up the surprise she had prepared for her boyfriend. But the boyfriend was still defending the maid. After hearing this, Julie became even more angry with the maid and made things difficult for him by giving him half an hour to deliver a new cake, and then said that if he didn't deliver the cake on time, she would fire the maid. In order to keep her job, the maid agreed to do it. Just when Ruth was at a loss for words, Jack drove up and tried to help Ruth with her urgent needs. Ruth looked at him with a puzzled look on her face. "Why are you helping me?" "Hash won't believe me, Hash. Anyway, get in the car." A few moments later, they rushed to a cake store. No, 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 no! Their hopes were dashed, but then the unexpected happened. The owner informed them that there was another special cake in the store. Jack was overjoyed and hugged Ruth tightly. Just when they think the cake is within their reach, suddenly a woman with a badass look walks into the store and tells them that the cake has been reserved for them. Jack tries to overpay for the cake, but the woman refuses. Just when Jack is at a loss, Ruth walks up to the cake and takes a bite out of it with her little cherry mouth. The killer is instantly flabbergasted and threatens to leave without paying for the tainted cake. The next moment, the two of them smiled at each other, and just when they were still in the midst of their joy, a cell phone ringing broke the short-lived good times. Jack's wedding is coming up, so they rush home. But just as they were about to go upstairs, they saw Julie running down the stairs. They hid, but luckily Julie didn't see them, so the two of them worked together to put the cake in the house before they could share their joy. The men realized that the wedding was about to start and hurriedly grabbed their suits to change into. To show her gratitude, Ruth helps him put on his suit and fixes Jack's tie. In the short time they spend together, the relationship between the two changed subtly. The next moment, Jack couldn't help but kiss him, not realizing that accidents always come out of nowhere. Jack accidentally knocked over the hard-earned cake, and by chance, Julie arrived at the same time. Ruth hurriedly told Jack to hide. Julie looked at Ruth in front of her. Ruth looked at the cake that Jack had knocked over and asked for forgiveness. But then Julie laughed and asked Ruth, "Do you think I'm a clown like Jack?" Jack instantly frowned, followed by the woman saying. Ruth hurriedly interrupted Julie and defended Jack. Julie didn't give it a second thought, because she thought Jack was only as good as he was because of himself. Otherwise, he'd just be a porter. Jack shook his head in disbelief at this, and immediately afterwards, the woman walked out of the room in disgust, and Jack walked out as well. Looking at Ruth, who was crying with red eyes, Jack decided to do something about it. I should stay with her. But at that moment, I decided I had to change myself. Just as Julie was enjoying the blessing of her friends and family, Jack appeared in front of her wearing a porter's uniform. Julie looked at Jack's outfit. Not only was she incredulous, but she wanted the priest to postpone the wedding and rushed to Jack's side to say so, but Jack told her with a straight face. It changed where you would, I guess, only about what we were. You can web whatever you like. Oh, really? Julie was completely helpless, but had to accept the man's outfit for the time being to save her face. But at the same time, Jack said slowly, I think I was here when we were late for a long time. I mean, until I win the heart of one special goal. Julie's defenses are down and she's hysterical. The next moment, Ruth knew she was going to be fired and was leaving with her bags when Jack's voice came from behind her. Ruth is amazed at Jack's appearance and looks at Jack's clothes and wonders why he is here. But then Jack tells her to put the bags down, and Ruth can't believe it. Jack told her, "You made me find my true self," and whispered in her ear, "I liked you a long time ago, but I didn't have a chance to say it to you." Ruth was shy again. Immediately after Jack took the initiative to attack, the two tightly embraced each other, forgetting the kiss up. Love is to find someone you can be true to yourself with the person who loves you. A rich kid witnessed something weird on Christmas Day. His girlfriend was embracing a beggar in broad daylight. The man went forward to stop, but he was scolded by his girlfriend because they are not only high school classmates, they were also each other's first love. But what's even more outrageous, Zhenya even in front of her boyfriend, flirting with a beggar in front of her boyfriend. They could never imagine how scary a jealous man is. David deliberately pushed the beggar against the wall. Then he slipped his wallet into the beggar's pocket. Then they used the excuse of busy work. They left the clinic in a hurry, but just before they left the bridge, they found out what happened to the pocket. He was surprised to find there were thousands of dollars in cash in his wallet. And at the same time, David was getting into his car to leave. That freak stole my woman. What is your house? I need your boyfriend robbed me to understand you're so naive. I'm calling the boys. Hey, maybe you just left it at home. Do you think I am an idiot? But to David's surprise, Joe came over with his wallet. May wanted her boyfriend to say thank you, but David wasn't going to stop there. Then he said that $200 was missing from his wallet. That's it, I'm calling the boys. Tell us in the safe. Hey, that's enough. Joey is a good man and done if he stole a couple hundred, because he's hungry and you need a staff in your office. Don't you? Are you offering me a job over my dead body? Hey, they always said that people should be treated equally, and if you really want to take his place, you need to find some kindness in your heart here. David outwardly agreed to Zheng's request. Esitek had planned everything in his mind. When Zhenya got out of the car, she gave him money and the address of her company. Why are you helping me? We all have bad times, but doesn't mean we are best people. At that moment, the gears of fate began to turn. The next day, David was in a meeting with the executives. He caught his girlfriend and Joe in an intimate moment. David's head instantly turned green. He came to the side of the two as soon as Asako's feet left. David's secretary stuck up to him. He looked around in panic. After making sure that no one was there, he sneaked into the office with his secretary, and Joe saw him, so he went up to see what was going on. Just as he expected, the relationship between the two men was extraordinary. David gave him an envelope. Inside was tens of thousands of dollars in cash. In order to find out the truth, Joe did not hesitate to knock on the door. David opened the door. Joe also spilled garbage all over the floor. What are you doing here? So sorry. I don't know. Jesus, this is new shoes, you know? You'll be working to pay for them to the rest of your life. Clean it up. Right away, I know because you have 5 minutes. That's all I've got. While they're gone, Jolie goes to his desk and rummages around. He was determined to find evidence of David's guilt. After tireless efforts, he found a strange key on the liquor cabinet. Just then, David came into the office. In a moment of ingenuity, Joe claimed to be cleaning the liquor cabinet. He was able to get away with it. When Joe left, the secretary pulled a bottle of flour out of her chest, and they had no idea David was embezzling money from the public coffers. David was embezzling money from the public coffers to do something he didn't want to be seen doing. Just as the secretary was about to celebrate with a drink, an accident occurred. David suddenly realized that the key was missing from the bottom of the bottle, so he searched for it. The teacher, my brother, oh my god, sorry, keep on my door, they count. On second thought, Joe was the only one whose whereabouts were the most suspicious. Meanwhile, Zhenya was in the middle of a video conference, but she was interrupted by Joe. Seeing that Joe was in a hurry, he stopped his work just as he was about to tell me. David arrived at the scene without stopping and lied that Joe had stolen from him. I've had enough of this. Christian, you're insane with jealousy. Joe, what are you talking about? Maybe you got it all wrong. If you don't leave me, let's go and start searching all around this office by insisting that we start from Islam. Okay, let's go. But even there is nothing in there. You apologize to John. I didn't steal anything, and I'll prove it. Inside was a bunch of bills. Joe had no idea. David had keys for all the employees. He couldn't explain himself. Joe had to pull out his own weapon of choice. But David wasn't scared. He was willing to be inspected. And as it turned out, there was no evidence of a crime in the drawer. David did not hesitate to call the police, but Zhenya, remembering the old friendship, she told Joe to leave before the police arrived. At the end of the night, Joe was waiting in the parking lot. You don't think I would find her? I'll give you a chance to complain. But if you don't, I'll send them on commands. You don't have nothing on me. What is this? It's what you've been hiding so hard. It's everything that wasn't a drama. Oh my god, we're so smart here. Joe, how did you do this? How did you come up with all this so big? Think you could mailing me with fake documents? Hash now, I have to know now, hash. I know why you have to eat from dumpsters. Hash think I'm so stupid enough, hash. Keep my dirty account on paper instead of digitaling. You have no idea how stupid you are. David had no idea. David didn't realize that their entire conversation was being recorded. The police arrived at the scene early. David was eventually arrested for embezzlement. David was finally arrested for embezzling public funds and participating in underground transactions. Mercy, I'm so sorry. No, I'm the 100 to apology. What are you talking about? Give me a job and a chance to get back on my feet. You haven't changed since high school, but I don't seem to know people like you either. She didn't have to do anything at work every day. She just stared at the cake in front of her with hateful eyes, and then ate the cake, and then the work day was over. Maybe it's because she works for a dessert company. Or maybe it's because the company's lunches are so scrumptious that all the new employees eat a lot of weight. Of course, they're not the only ones. The main girl, Emmy, is no exception, as the only cake maker in the store. Taste testing seems to have become a routine. I don't know when it started, but Zhenya loves to eat. She eats when she's happy. She eats when she's sad and weepy. And if it all comes down to it, she just eats and that's it. In just 3 months, she gained 50 pounds, have 8-pack abs compared to her boyfriend. Zhyenya's stomach is a joke. Even the favorite dress also looked down on her. Change one cannot, and then change one are fat. And even one of the set of direct support of the open line, it is not easy to change a good, but ushered in is the boyfriend's face full of contempt. It's not that the girl likes to wear this, because today is a special day. She was invited to attend a classmate's wedding ceremony. It was the arrival of this day that made Zhenya realize the consequences of not being able to control her mouth. At the wedding venue, she saw her boyfriend dancing with other beautiful girls. Subconsciously, she was so jealous that she walked onto the dance floor and declared her sovereignty in front of the other beauties. This kiss directly let the boyfriend's goosebumps fell 2 pounds 3-2. Maybe it's because of the long period of inactivity. The end of the dance, Xiaomei began to eat, said anything to make up for the energy consumed in the party. It happened in the toast session. Looking at the obese body of Xiaomei, the groom thought she was pregnant. After seeing the embarrassed look of the hostess, the groom realized that he had said something he shouldn't have said. And these words also let the boyfriend feel helpless, so he also face-to-face with her to ask for a breakup. On the way home, all the way, Zhenya kept crying. The two-way blow of friends and love was too much for her to accept. And then she came home to see her mother on a blind date. She had just lost her love. How could she see someone else good? And immediately rejected the marriage. She was so depressed that she could only complain to her girlfriends, as if she could only feel some warmth here. This night, Xiaomei thought for a long time, also cried for a long time. She is very clear that everything is fat caused by the trouble. The next day, she asked her best friend what she could do. She said, "What else can I do? The gym, of course." In order to compete, Xiaomei spent a lot of money to get a VIP card. Since she was a novice, she didn't know what would be better for her. So she watched and learned from others. When it's her turn, she ends just before she starts. It's okay, that's not appropriate. Let's change in just 5 minutes. She changed all the fitness equipment. Now she can lose a few pounds, right? She didn't lose any weight on the scale. After thinking about it, she decided that eating was better for her. At night, Emmy decided to take a shortcut. She bought a slimming cream and applied it all over her body. Then she wrapped it in plastic wrap to let it fully ferment and absorb. The next day, May came to work as usual. She tasted the cream out of habit, then remembered she was on a diet and immediately did 10 squats to punish herself. This Daisy Emmy almost did nothing, just staring at the cake, as if to have some kind of deep-seated hatred in general. The heroine looked at him, and he also looked at him with a smile. Eventually, Xiaomei still lost the battle, copied the cake, and ate it all. But this is not the way to go on. So she found a weight loss mutual aid society. Although she didn't get any effective advice, she did meet Curly, who was about the same age. After the meeting, they left each other contact information. After learning of May's predicament, Curly offered to help her lose weight. At first, Zhenya just listened, but she never expected that the next day, this kid really came. Curly accompanied her like a follower. At first, Zhenya could only hold on for 2 minutes and 51 seconds. But the next day, the time took a quantum leap. Curly was like an alarm clock, waking her up on time every day. After a period of time together, they have changed from strangers to friends who have nothing to say to each other. She pushes the limits of her body time and time again, and her body aches from exhaustion. She made diet meals for herself and carefully planned the intake of each meal. Green food replaced the big fish and meat in the hands of her colleagues. Finally, she lost weight and reached the perfect weight in her mind. Now, she wants to get back what she once lost. She wore a swimsuit swimsuit, but not to swim, but to show her perfect body to the coach. In fact, the swimming coach has another identity. 5 months ago, he was Xiaomei's boyfriend, but because he could not stand Xiaomei's obesity and the cynicism of her classmates, he broke up with her. But during this period, the small beauty of sadness for strength. In the company of curly hair, non-stop exercise, a full 30 pounds thin. Now she decided to take the piss out of her ex-boyfriend, and as you can see from his shocked gaze, the heroine did it. Looking at Zimei's perfect body, the boyfriend brother even forgot how to say something. Originally, he thought that his change would change his ex-boyfriend's heart, but his dream was shattered by the appearance of a woman as the coach's current girlfriend. She immediately jumped into the water and declared her sovereignty over Zhenya. Zhenya lost this battle completely. Afterwards, she, sadly, told Curly about all this, and Curly let all this garbage dumped on himself in order to help Zhenya get over it. Curly gave up his weight loss program and took Zhenya on a trip around the countryside. It's easy to see that Curly loves this girl from the bottom of his heart, but whenever he is about to make a big move, Zhenya will interrupt his hidden spells in time. Only when Zhenya is sleeping can he get what he wants. Even so, Curly felt very satisfied because poetry and faraway places are all around him soon after the two travel to the end. In order to thank Curly for this period of time with the company, before parting, Zhenya gently sent a kiss. I did not expect this meltdown to the boy whole confused. After the car, he put on sunglasses, one elbow leaning on the window. The music is turned up to the maximum, following the rhythm of shaking up the small hand. The arrogant look, even the next door to Wang Dazi are looking dumbfounded. On the road, he drove the little yellow car with the feeling of a bumblebee. When he saw someone selling flowers on the way, he slammed on the brakes decisively. Curly decided he had to be brave for once. He had to take this bouquet of flowers with him to find Zhenya to confess his love on the other side. The ex-boyfriend approached the heroine again. It turns out that after meeting Zhenya at the swimming pool that day, he couldn't help himself. Within a few days, he broke up with his last girlfriend. This time he came here to get back together with Zhenya. The picture of the two of them warmly coexisting, but also happened to be sent flowers to the curly hair found. See this, he realized how ridiculous he is. Just saved up the courage at this moment also disappeared. In the house, her boyfriend started to talk to her again, saying that if I hadn't dumped you in the first place, you wouldn't have succeeded in losing weight. Hearing this, Xiaomei was instantly furious. No one knew how he had gotten through the past 5 months, so she didn't want to link her figure to her love. But her boyfriend didn't care. He liked Zhenya the way she was, and he didn't want her to get fat. Xiaomei finally recognized the face of this scum, such a love, who would accept it, depressed. He wanted to stay at his girlfriend's house for a few days, but her girlfriends also have to live. Tomorrow will have to work in the factory, for which the two had a big fight. Now Zhenya has not only lost her love, but also her longtime friendship. She has no choice but to look to Curly for help. But this time, Curly doesn't want to help. She says that Zhenya doesn't love herself and always lives in her own world. Afterward, he took out an apple, described her as beautiful on the outside, but rotten on the inside. Curly left without looking back. In the end, Zhenya screwed up everything that was hers. After that, he cried more and more and fell asleep in the rice paddy, not realizing that it was harvest time. The next day, while he was still sleeping, the scythe of death was already approaching. He just slept in the wheat field. He didn't expect to run into a harvester at full speed the next day, and the driver's blind spot didn't see Zhenya at all. Fortunately, on the eve of the crisis, a man saved the girl. The man was no other than a blind date for Zimei's mother. The man wasn't as worthless as Zhenya thought, but rather he was trying to live a life worthy of his mother. Afterwards, in her mother's face full of shock, Xiaomei brought the man back home. He proved to her mother's actions to prove their own ideas. The mother's love was finally accepted, and the three of them cried tears of joy and hugged each other tightly. The next day, she found a good friend to apologize from the moment Zhenya cried. In fact, the friend has already forgiven her, and in front of him, to show off their own research and development of high tech, her best friend knew that Zhenya had grown up, and in a hug, the two sisters finally broke the ice. From the moment I started to love life. It seemed that all the good things in the world came to her. Now I has only one problem. From his colleagues, he learns that Curly has recently fallen into a state of self-indulgence, drinking all day long to drown his sorrows, and is not recognized by his colleagues. After learning of this, I goes to the parking lot and slaps the beer out of Curly's hand. She told Curly that it was your company that made me thin, but now we can swap identities, and I will accompany you to overcome these difficulties. With his encouragement, Curly picks himself up and returns to the starting line. Unlike before, this time, I ran with him. There's no denying that body image and looks are important, but do they really matter compared to the dream you want to pursue? At the end of the movie, the mother enters into marriage, and her best friend goes to the big city to pursue her career on May's advice. As for May's ex-boyfriend, he is still a single dog. Colleagues in the company follow May's lead in pursuing healthy meals, and Curly also finds the courage to kiss the goddess. Their love for each other shines brightly under the sunlight. In fact, human beings are just like this rotten apple. As long as we get rid of the past, it's still perfect. At that time, I believe all the good things in the world will meet you unexpectedly. The man has been stuck in traffic on the motorway for 20 hours. He was on the verge of breaking down from the flies. Doug had to abandon the car and find a phone booth to call home, only to realize he had no change on him. Doug immediately found a kiosk and asked the owner for some change, but the owner said he wouldn't give him any change unless he spent it. Doug could only take a bottle of soda. The owner saw Doug's face and raised the price on purpose. Doug just wanted to buy the soda at the normal price so he could get enough change, but the owner said, if you can't afford it, go out the door and turn left. Doug didn't want to put up with this kind of bad business. I won't leave if you tell me to. The owner's not a vegetarian. I'll sell to whoever I want, for whatever I want, or you'll see blood. When Doug saw the boss bending down to get his weapon, he jumped right in and grabbed it. Angry Doug was so strong that he snatched the baseball bat out of the boss's hand. Now, Doug wanted to show the boss what happens when you're an unscrupulous businessman. He smashed everything in the shop. The owner realized that he had messed with a tough guy today, and that his life depended on it, so he said that he could have all the money. But Doug says, all I want is a soda at the regular price. Doug paid for the soda and left the shop with the change. Doug immediately looked for another phone booth, but couldn't get through and had to walk home in a hurry. Doug found a big hole in the bottom of his shoe, so he used the newspaper in his bag to pad it out. After working for over 10 years, he couldn't even afford a good pair of shoes. At that moment, two gangsters came over and saw that Doug was dressed like a white-collar man, so they tried to rob him. Doug said, I'm broke. I don't have any money. The gangsters didn't believe him and pulled out a sharp knife, asking Doug to give him his bag. Doug's anger instantly soared. He swung the baseball bat he had just got from the kiosk and hit him furiously. The gangster's hands were smashed and he ran away. Doug just wants to go home smoothly to his daughter's birthday. Whoever hinders him, he will make whoever pays the price. But this gangster is not a vegetarian. Immediately called a car full of brothers, looking for Doug all over the street. It's not a gentleman who doesn't take revenge. Finally, he saw Doug on the phone on the street. Without saying a word, he grabbed a machine gun and started shooting. But he was such a bad shot, he killed several pedestrians. But Doug was unharmed, and as the punks ran away, they collided with an oncoming car, killing them all, with one dying. Doug passed by, saw these punks actually want his life, picked up the gun next to him. A few shots will be punched to death, and then carry the bag and calmly left the scene. There were several guns in the bag. Anyone who tried to stop him from going home again would be shot. Doug walked to the bus stop and tried to get a bus back, but the people trying to get on the bus were too crazy. Doug got pushed out and couldn't get on the bus, so he had to keep walking. He passes a park, and a homeless man is chasing Doug for money, because Doug must have money in his shirt and tie. Doug says, I'm poor. I don't have anything to give you. The homeless guy doesn't believe him and yells at Doug, you've got no money and you've got 2 bags. Give me one if you've got the guts. Doug then gave the homeless man the box. The homeless man was too happy to believe it, but when he opened it, all he saw was a rotten apple. The homeless man was so angry that he couldn't believe in human appearance anymore. I might as well be rich. Looks can be deceiving. deceiving. Doug walks for another hour and is so hungry that he walks into a burger joint. Doug wanted a breakfast, but the waiter told him that breakfast time was over and he could only order lunch now. Doug sees that it's only been a minute, so he asks the waiter to give him a breakfast, but the waiter refused and said he could come back in the morning for breakfast. Doug gets really angry and pulls out a machine gun, which scares the shit out of everyone in the shop. But Doug said, "I just want breakfast. Don't be afraid." The waiter finally gave Doug a breakfast. Doug learned the hard way that dignity is within the range of a gun after breakfast. Doug continued on his way. Passing a stall, he saw a nice music box. Doug bought one for his daughter as a birthday present. Doug found another phone booth to make a call, but a man behind said loudly that Doug had been occupying it for too long, and that it wasn't your phone booth, and kept swearing. Doug immediately fired dozens of rounds from his machine gun at the phone booth, and it was smashed to pieces. "You want to make a phone call? You want to make a phone call?" The man was so scared that he pissed his trousers. Now Doug's feet are getting sore, and he walks into a shoe shop to buy a pair of shoes. The shopkeeper, a sociopath, hears on the radio a news report about a man who looks just like the man in front of him. The shopkeeper is pleasantly surprised and thinks that a man like this is his idol. So he pulls Doug into the warehouse, shows Doug all kinds of weapons, and wants to follow Doug around to wreak havoc on society. Doug said he is not a sociopath. "I just want to go home." The two men have a disagreement. The shopkeeper attacks Doug and smashes the music box he bought for his daughter. Doug is furious and kills the owner without mercy, then takes the owner's rocket launcher for himself. Doug gets out and continues on his way. He's not far from home, but the road is being built and the workers won't let him pass. Doug can't stand it anymore. Is it so hard to go home to see his daughter? Without saying a word, Doug took out his bazooka and fired it. He scares the workers into running away, and no one stops him. Doug was in such a hurry to get home that he had to take a shortcut. He walked through a golf course, the shortest straight line between 2 points. But the old man playing golf didn't like it. "What kind of a lowlife can just walk in here?" The golfer yells at Doug and tells him to get out. Doug doesn't want to talk to the old man, but the old man swings a golf ball right at Doug and almost hits him. Doug was really pissed off. "I'm just trying to get home, and you're trying to beat me to death with a golf ball." Angry, Doug pulls out a shotgun and hits the car next to him with one shot. The old man had a heart attack. He needed medication, but the medicine was in the car, and the car had already fallen into the lake. It seems that the old man is going to die today, and his $10 billion fortune will only be divided up by his descendants. Doug finally arrives home, but his wife is at the playground with their daughter. Doug finally sees his daughter and can spend her birthday with her. But by now, the police have arrived at Doug's side. Doug is going to jail for all the murders he's committed today. Doug didn't want to go to jail. He told the police that "you can shoot me. I have bought a high insurance policy. The beneficiary is my daughter. It's the last thing I can do for my daughter." Doug pretended to shoot the cop. The cop shot Doug dead. From then on, his wife and daughter lived happily ever after with the millions of dollars from the insurance claim. The man unintentionally realized that his mouse button had jumped out of the 3 worlds and appeared on the wall in reality. What's going on here? He was so scared that he hurriedly swiped the touchpad back, fearing that he would break the computer he just bought. He didn't realize that his mouse could travel between the real and virtual worlds at will. Luckily, his co-workers didn't notice the whole process. In order to test the roll of the arrow, Xiao Shuai decisively manipulated the panel, placed it on a paper cup, and then apprehensively knocked down the left button. Never thought that the mouse in the virtual reality can also play a role. This heck of a lot of fun. After regaining his senses, Zishuai turned his head and saw that his late ticket was on the table. This is the 7th one he received this month. In the past, Zishuai would have put up with it, but now his mouse is like the hand of God. Zishuai pursed his lips and smiled, and began to tamper with this fine slip with his keyboard. The more he wrote, the more he got, and he changed the fine of $1,000 to a reward of $20,000. And he even made a special note that it would be executed immediately. Looking at the masterpiece in his hand, Xiao Shuai couldn't help but laugh his ass off. In the eyes of his co-workers, he was treated like a retard, but the hero doesn't care about that. He's going to find a living person to test it now. The subject of his experiment, even I did not expect, is the company's beautiful supervisor. With a target in mind, Zishuai started to take action. As he slides the touchpad, the mouse on the computer smoothly smoothly comes to the real world. Then Zishuai continued to control the arrow, slowly leaning towards the supervisor side. At this time, the beautiful supervisor is also very cooperative to turn around, so it gives Zishuai a chance to take advantage of the situation. Naturally, the hero also noticed this and immediately pulled up the touchpad to control the mouse. If nothing else, an accident will happen soon. The man suddenly awakened a superpower. His mouse button can travel back and forth between the real and virtual worlds. Not only that, but the arrows can control real objects. Oh my god, this is so much fun. After awakening this skill, Zishuai was like discovering a new continent, immediately sliding his little hand, moving the mouse button, and began to slowly lean towards the beautiful supervisor side. I have to say, Zishuai is quite good at playing. Seeing that the time was ripe, he immediately operated the touchpad and aimed the mouse button at the thighs of the beautiful woman, and then continued to extend upwards. After the arrow reached the designated place, Zishuai subconsciously clicked the mouse. The beauty supervisor let out a scream of self-indulgence on the spot. He continues to pick and pull. She is even more difficult. He gradually speeds up. She's hot and about to burn up to 40 degrees. Simply put, it's brutal. Finally reached the limit of the beautiful director can only shyly run out of the office. All this was stolen by Zishuai. Afterwards, Handsome couldn't wait to find his buddy. Bolthead ... At first, Bolthead was not quite convinced until Zishuai changed the name of the following trading company into a stupid company. Bolthead was completely confused. So he will let the small Handsome trick under the leadership, only to see them boxed in the leadership car and then directly to the micro shrink function. When the leader went out, immediately was stunned. His car has become a toy. He thought it was a prank between colleagues, but picked up the toy to look at the license plate number. Suddenly dumbfounded, the little thing is clearly his car. Seeing this scene, the Bolthead is not only happy, but more is heartbroken, because this ability is too overbearing. Said Bolthead and let Xiao Shuai try copy and paste pieces. Zishuai is also relatively new to this function, so immediately selected a piece of wall frame in the computer to copy. After some operation, the copied wall immediately blocked the window next to it. Functions available on the computer can be used in reality. Seeing this scene, Bolt even more excited than Xiao Shuai because they can copy any object. All kinds of airplanes, cannons, tanks, and cars are available, and it's not a dream to rule the world at that time. Bolthead more and more emotional, as if the world in front of them is already broken. However, this kind of crazy speech made Zishuai very disgusted. He secretly clicked on the box icon and then slid the touchpad. When his buddy wasn't looking, he circled him. The bald guy who was in trouble was still talking crazy, not realizing that as long as Handsome moved his finger, his life would be completely buried here. His computer is unique in that he can select any object in reality and then copy it and drag it to other places, such as moving the neighbor's bed. His best friend was thrilled to learn about it and asked him to copy some planes and cannons. He wants to use them to build an army and rule the world. However, this kind of crazy speech made Shuai very disgusted, so he secretly operated the computer when his buddy wasn't looking and selected the whole bald guy. He pressed the delete button. The bald head whole person is lost. Only one arm left in the human world would, and the limbs fell on the downstairs of the screen was more and more people to eat the crowd to find out. These people are clamoring to call the police. Handsome knew that he would go to jail if this was exposed, so he spun the entire crime scene frame and then pressed the delete button to clean up all the incriminating evidence. After doing this, Shuai's mind was finally put down, although he took care of the witnesses. He killed more people in the process. Thinking about this, the hero decided to go home and be a wife and never use this ability again. Unexpectedly, when he was just halfway there, a giant mouse button appeared on the wall at first. Zishuai thought he was blind, but when he looked down, the huge arrow was pointing straight at him. It looked like this thing was coming towards the hero. Almost at the same time when Zishuai raised his head, the mouse button also sent him to hell. This is the end of the movie. So the question is, if you had this ability, what would you most like to do?